Hello, hello, my fellow sovereigns. It is good to be back. It is good to be feeling better. My goodness, my body and this pregnancy and Declan being in school has brought home everything. And so I am working on cultivating deeper practices to have my own healthy light bubble of protection as we enter into these next few stages of, giving birth and all that. But that is aside from our topic to today, because I have been in a quandary, I guess you could say, searching, feeling all the feelings. Grief has been coming up again, very present for me, and dealing with some things. And in the process of doing so, I literally turned to my husband and I said, I know what the problem was. And he was like, what? I said, you know how I've been acting kind of like funky and in this like weird space? And maybe you've had this too, where you're like in this weird space of like vacillation and you're like bouncing back between all these options and you're just kind of like in this ether and feel like you're kind of being swept around and kicked around by the waves of life, of everything that you're going through and all the responsibilities that you have and all that. And that's basically where I was for the past few weeks until literally yesterday. Now, my husband and I have a few things that we say to each other to kick ourselves into that next level, to really lean into what it is that our vision is for our family and for our relationship and for our businesses. And one of the ones that he has full permission to ask me is, and this one normally comes up when I'm in the space of doubting myself or feeling fear, even though I'm getting something that I want. So this one question that he asked me quite poignantly was back in 2019, was I think the last time he had to ask me it, was when I was about to go on stage at EmpowerCon in the LA Convention Center. And I was going on after Michael Uslan, who is the executive producer of the whole Batman series. Like, mad respect for this man and what he has created, like as a producer, as a creator. And I was freaking the F out because I had all the feelings coming up of imposter syndrome and doubt and fear and all that. And I just remember being in the bathroom and having this moment, and I was crying, and my husband came in and he's like, Kim, are you the motherfucking queen bitch or not? And I was like, oh, you're right. Now, see, I say this because I have given him full permission to say this to me when appropriate, when I am in the space of doubting myself and fear is sitting on my throne. Well, just yesterday, I came up with another question that he is now allowed to ask me. So when I get into that space of being in that vacillation space of indecision and lack of clarity and not lack of vision, but really lack of clarity, and lack of like what courageous action to take, the specific of like the how and the what of like what is the next move to make. And when I get into that space, it knocks me out. Like, I don't know about you, when you feel like you're being tossed around by the waves, like that for me, that is a space that I do not like living in. And I realized, because yesterday I was like queen of decisiveness. I was like, yes to this, no to this is happening, do this, yes this, no that. And I felt 1,000 times better rather than sitting and having certain things be waited on and let me find the right answer and let me feel it out. And instead, I just was like the decision-making queen. And I was yesing this and knowing that and really just standing by it and trusting that whether I made the right decision or not, if we want to believe in the construct of right and wrong, that I always make the right decision, because even if it's technically the wrong decision, or even if it's a mistake or a mess up or I fuck up or whatever, I do believe that it is the right decision because I will grow from it. But it's in that space of being in that space of vacillation and uncertainty. If vacillation is a word, I believe it's a word. But being in that space of uncertainty, being in that space of not sure what you're doing, of lacking the clarity, of trying to feel it out. Sometimes what you need to do in that space is just make a fucking decision. And I guarantee you that once you make a decision, right or wrong, you're going to have data, the results of that decision, that say whether you made the right or wrong decision, and that will give you the data, the information, the insight as to what you need to do next. So instead of sitting and waiting on things, making that decision, and this is something I teach to my clients all the time. It is one of the top queen bee skill sets to cultivate, is the skill set of making decisions and making decisions faster. But as you grow your business, as you grow your life, sometimes those decisions aren't as pivotal. They aren't those like big time black or white line in the sand decisions. They're those little piddly decisions that sit on your to-do list that are just kind of lingering in the background of your life as some open subconscious loop and like holding up your productivity. And deciding, okay, this is a priority or this is not a priority. This is going to go off my to-do list and this is going to go on my to-do list. And if I put it on my to-do list, it's going to get done. And deciding those little things, it really is a degree of perfecting the speed in which you make your decisions. And it is the number one skill set that you can cultivate as an entrepreneur and as a business owner, and just in general, in order to garner momentum. Because the thing that most people hate, like the thing that so many people come to me with, is overwhelm and feeling stuck. Well, when you're in that space of stuckness, and I know I was just there, like when you're in that space of stuckness, it's almost like you're being tossed around by the waves. You don't have a life raft. You're not quite sure how to do it. And then overwhelm is basically you drowning by the waves, trying to figure out like how to swim and keep your head above water. When meanwhile, there is a boat that is called the decision boat that all you just need to do is just grab onto. Now, is it necessarily the right boat? I don't know. Is it a yacht? Maybe not. Is it a life raft? Possibly. But at least you're grabbing on to a decision. Hey, even if you like grabbed the fin of a dolphin and just started letting it pull you somewhere, that's a decision rather than choosing to be swept along by the waves. So obviously that's metaphorical, but at the same time, it is your speed in which you make the decision. So let's say, for example, you decide to start a business. The longer you delay on making that decision, the more time doubt has to creep into your mind. The more time doubt and questioning has to start waiting on that, in that space of the lingering, and the waves of doubt start to get higher and they start to get bigger and the questions get more and you get farther and farther and farther out to sea, rather than had you just planted your feet in the sand and started walking in one direction. You would still be on the shore. You would at least have found the shore. So the key here is, how can you cultivate that speed in which you need to make the decisions? What do you need to decide now? Since we're talking about speed of decisions, what do you need to decide now that you know you've been delaying on? And I don't mean something big necessarily. Maybe it's, responding to a customer. Maybe it is hiring a coach. Maybe it is just something small like deciding on what to cook for dinner. Instead of having it be that back and forth, what do you want? I don't know. What do you want? What do you want? Because it's when we're in that back and forth, it's when we're in that space of lack of decisiveness or indecisiveness, to be more like grammatically correct. I haven't spoken this much in like a few weeks because I've been struggling with bronchitis and laryngitis and sinusitis and all the itises. But this message was coming through and I was like, I cannot delay to prove the point of not delaying on releasing this, on getting this out there, because I've just had too many conversations with clients and seen too much in the space of coaching and of people starting businesses now that people are letting decision making be this long, drawn out process. And what it's doing is it's allowing doubt in its most insidious form, in the form of questioning your decision, to come in. And so in order to curtail that, we need to get on this right now. So you know, and I know, that there is some decision out there that you have not made, that you have vacillated on. Maybe you've gone down the research rabbit hole of like waiting for more research instead of drawing your line in the sand saying, this is my choice and this is not my choice. This one is going to work for me and this one is not. Because that's all life is. It really is just a series of choices. Now, you can make your choices and make your decisions from that space of doubt and fear, or you can make your choices and make your decisions based off of faith and trust in the vision that you're creating. Preferably the latter. Because here is the thing. Doubt is a choice. Delaying on making the choice is a choice. The problem is when you make that choice to delay on making the choice, the choice that you actually need to make instead of the choice to delay on making the choice that you need to make, when you are in that space, it widens the gap between you and the actual action step. So instead of it being just a step, it starts to feel like that next action step is leaps and bounds away from you. So it's your job to close the gap by just speeding up the amount of time it takes you to make a decision. Because when you can close the gap, no longer does it feel like you're having to leap over these massive chasms and cliffs and what is that? Riverbeds. Instead, you're just able to just leap from stone to stone, merrily down the path as you gain and build momentum. It's not this big giant thing. Our subconscious mind makes it a big giant thing the more we delay on it. It makes that open loop, which I've talked about, and David Allen talks about more in his book, Getting Things Done. When you leave things open, when you aren't making decisions on what goes next or what happens next, or when you're not being decisive and you're allowing that decision to spin in that ocean of vacillation and doubt and indecisiveness, what happens is you have a subconscious open loop, and it's basically like having all the tabs open on your browser and expecting your browser to be working at the same speed and pace as it would be if you only had one tab or one program open. It does not. It's just like having a necklace that you want the links in the necklace to be closed so that they obviously string together. Well, the more you delay on making a choice, it starts to open that loop more and more and more, so that eventually you need to pull out the tweezers and connect them back together. That is a decision. But it is also a decision to let it widen and widen and widen and delay and delay and delay and delay. And that decision has consequences as well. So it just depends on what are the consequences and results that you want to experience from the decision. Do you want the consequence and experience to be momentum and growth, which is by speeding up the amount of time it takes you to make a decision? Or is it by delay and doubt and having the lessons and the learnings come from that experience of learning what it feels like to stay in that space of delay and doubt? And having been in that space of delay and doubt for a year and a half before my business started making any money in 2016, I would highly recommend the former. I would highly recommend choosing to lean into the skill set of making a decision, letting it be wrong or letting it be right, and gathering the data of experience rather than going down the research rabbit hole, delaying on making that decision, feeling out what works best. Like I always say, check in with your intuition, of course, but make a decision. Even if you're not getting a clear picture, even if you're not 100%, if you're at least 50%, lean in, make that decision, gain the momentum. I actually heard, I believe it was from Tony Robbins' Business Mastery, that Amazon's leadership board makes most of their decisions, like for $1 trillion company, with 40 to 60% of the information available. 40 to 60%. They're not delaying on making decisions when they have 100% of information. They never will. It's $1 trillion company. It's too big. They would never have the time to gather all the data. Instead, they favor momentum, which is why they've been one of the fastest growing billion, now $1 trillion companies out there. It's why they're so huge. They make the decisions faster. They make the decisions with less information. And so how can you adapt the same strategy to your business, to your life, so that instead of wading around in that ocean and getting knocked around, you start making those decisions, grabbing on, paddling, choosing to go in one direction or the other, but at least you're making a choice. So the question that I told my husband to ask me, to circle back to that, was how many decisions are you making and how quickly are you making them? Because that was my own stuckness that I got stuck in for a couple weeks because I was dealing with all this body stuff. And suddenly I was stuck in this stuck. And it was frankly causing me to delay on not only decisions about my health, but decisions about my business, on taking care of things that needed to be taken care of. And because lack of decision ripples into every area of your life. That's the thing, is that how you do anything is how you do everything. And so if it's affecting one area of your life, it's probably going to be affecting many others. And so I told my husband, I said, next time I get into that funky space of indecisiveness and lack of clarity, just ask me, how quickly and how many decisions are you making right now? What do you need to decide? Because that really is what it comes down to, is what do you need to decide? What do you need to decide you're available for? What do you need to decide to make that progress start moving? So instead of drowning in overwhelm and decision delay, you are actually paddling or swimming or grabbing a hold of something and getting to some form of, okay, what's the next step after this? And then what's the next? And then what's the next decision? And what's the next? Because that is how you will generate momentum, is through the power of conscious choice, conscious decision making, instead of unconscious doubt and delay, which is a form of learning, but it takes a lot longer. So with that being said, if you love this episode, if you found this one to be of massive value, take a screenshot of it and share it in your Insta stories. I love seeing those. And do me a massive favor and share this episode with your friends. Make the decision to help other people make the decision so we can all be consciously making decisions faster, creating greater momentum in our businesses and our lives toward the vision that we are creating collectively into a greater world where more good-hearted, mission-minded, purpose-driven leaders are making more money and making more impact. With that being said, as always, remember to own your throne, mind your business, because your reign is now.